guys want to hear something funny? Every single time I start off with Gray's Mail, I have this picture in my mind of Wayne's World. I don't know if you guys have seen Wayne's World. I know I'm older than a lot of you, but it would always go, Wayne's World, party time, excellent, woo, 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 woo. And I always think about like this opening for Gray's Mail, like Gray's Mail, party time, excellent. I thought it'd be hilarious, but I digress. And I know there's nothing wrong with me, you guys. It's just a Monday, so get over it. Before I begin, let me say this to you. On Friday of last week, I uploaded a video. Here's the thumbnail. Bloop. And it was actually on a question from Gray's Mail last week, and I decided to make its own video. All right. It was about why do I think more large YouTube channels don't help out smaller channels, and why don't large channels do community channels like Thunderstruck Gaming? So I made a video on it, so you guys go over there, check it out if you didn't watch it already. I thought it was a pretty good video. Number two, before I begin, you guys, tomorrow is the final date to vote for President of the United States of America. So if you guys have not gone out and done it, get off your behind, get out that house, and go and vote. Do not be apathetic towards voting. Apothos, I don't care. It's not your place, man. Too many men and women have fought and died for this country for you to sit and be lazy and put your hands behind your back and say, I don't care. You need to get out. You need to do the one thing that is your right, being in a free country of America. Go vote for president, okay? And I know everybody's going to ask me below because you guys live under a rock and you don't watch all my videos. Hey, Gray, who you voting for? I've spoken about it about 10 times now. I'm voting for Donald Trump. There are too many reasons out there as to why I would vote for Donald Trump, let alone my job, which I've done a video on talking about my job, how Obamacare nearly destroyed my job and how it's bad in so many ways. You don't like that answer? I'm conservative. I'm a Christian. The platform of the Republicans meets up mostly with what I believe. I am pro-life. Many of the other things out there, I'm not even gonna go into it because it's gonna start a war in the comment section. Even if you're voting for Clinton, you guys, as an American citizen, get up and go vote because that is why our country is so great. Okay, I'm gonna stop right there. I'm gonna start off with a little bit of a light question here. It comes from Eric Einstrom, and I don't know if I'm saying that wrong, but if I did, I apologize. And it's going to piggyback on top of another question by the Lone Courier. What the questions are is, what do I think about gory games? And in specific, asked by the Lone Courier, Doom, because you're fighting in hell against demons, it's satanic. It's the same thing that I feel about horror movies. I ask myself the question, do I want that in my mind? Can I delineate what I'm experiencing from real life? Or will the game play any type of role in twisting or thwarting my personality or skewing my perspective on life? Let me give you an example. Like, I love the show Sopranos. I watched it for years. I've watched the entire series multiple times, but every time I watch the series, I find myself cursing a lot more and wanting Italian food. That means that show is actually having an effect on my psyche. When it comes to video games, I'm not going to play a video game that's going to mess with my mind. I played Call of Duty for years, and I played Battlefield, which is basically the same thing. And you know, I'm so accustomed to it, it doesn't affect me in any way. Like, I don't go outside and see somebody crossing the street and want to pull out an AK-47 and mow them down. It doesn't do it to me. Same thing when I played Grand Theft Auto. It never really messed with me. However, certain scary games like Silent Hill, Resident Evil, those things can really start messing with your mind. And horror movies, you know, I'll start watching some horror movies and after 15, 20 minutes, I'll stop the movie and be like, you know what, I don't even want to see this. It's not necessary in my life. So my perspective on gory games and Doom, I personally don't have a problem with it as long as it doesn't affect somebody. But for me, I wouldn't let my kids play them. There's no way. I'm not even gonna play Doom. All right, next question. This is an interesting one, real light question here from Matthew Brown. What's my favorite color and why? My favorite color ever since I was a little boy was green. I don't know why, I just always loved green. And it's not changed because my eyes are green, my wife's eyes are green, and both of my kids' eyes are green. So I look at them pretty much all day long. So why wouldn't green be my favorite color? I really like this one. It came from EHT German. Well, he asked me in specific, what's your favorite Christian movie? And I replied back, how about top 3, top 5? Because I can't really narrow it down. Anybody who loves movies has a hard time narrowing down that very favorite one. So my top 5 Christian movies, and I'll try to put them in order in a way, but my number 1 favorite Christian movie of all time is actually a recent one. It was called Woodlawn. It's a football movie. And if you guys have not seen Woodlawn, and it's not overly in-your-face Christian, but it's got a Christian theme to it, and it's a really great movie back with Paul Bear Bryant in the University of Alabama. You guys watch that movie. It's great. Number 2 would be God's Not Dead. I love part 1 and part 2, so I just roll them all together. There's a lot of apologetics in it, and that's what I liked. It's the defense of our faith. So if you guys haven't seen God's Not Dead, I actually prefer part 2 over part 1 personally, but love those movies. Number 3, and it's my favorite Christmas movie as well. It's called A Midnight Clear, and Stephen Baldwin's in it. And if you guys haven't seen that movie, it's great. He plays an alcoholic, fighting for custody of his children, and it's not going so well. And there's all these different stories going on, so Midnight Clear, check it out. 4th one is a really old movie. I imagine many of you haven't seen it. It's called Chariots of Fire. Great movie, great soundtrack too. It's about Eric Liddell. And then the last one, you can't be a Christian and not put Passion of the Christ in your top 5. I know it was a real controversial movie, but and a lot of people hated Mel Gibson for doing it, but Passion of the Christ, it's an amazing movie. And you could throw in 10 Commandments with Charlton Heston, not one of my favorites, so I didn't put it in my top 5, but there you go. Jared Hamrick asked me it's an interesting question because I think a lot of guys struggle with this, especially when you're dating. He said, when I'm dating a girl, do you have any ideas of places to go or things to do? Yeah, I got a ton. I can tell you this, girls don't really like going to the movies. As much as you think that they do, they really don't. Girls want to be able to talk to you. So really anything that you can do where she can talk and you can listen, she'll fall in love with you. It's really that simple. The best date that I ever took my wife on was to the grocery store. We're hanging out at her apartment, all right? And this was a long time ago. She didn't really want to go see a movie, didn't want to go to a club or a bar or anything like that. I personally, I was growing out of those things, and I was like, let's go to the grocery store. She's like, what? I was like, let's go to the grocery store. Let's just walk around. Now, we probably laughed more that night than any night that I can think of until we were married. We were dying laughing just looking at stuff on the shelves and talking about things. We probably spent like $20. We didn't go there doing anything in specific or looking for anything or grocery shopping. We were just walking up and down the aisles looking at stuff, just talking. Because that's ultimately all a girl wants to do. She wants to talk and she wants you to listen. She wants to feel important in your eyes. It's that easy, man. A good meal is great. A picnic is better. Don't go eat at a Chili's. Go get Subway and take her out to a park and just sit there with her and talk with her. That's all she wants, man. And that's where true love comes from, is communication. Now, this last question is much more of a deep question, okay? And I'm actually going to pull it up and I'm going to read it to you so you guys see where I'm coming from, okay? And I don't know how in-depth I'm going to go here, but I'm going to try to help because I think it may help a lot of you guys. It comes from Mohammed Isa. And here's what it says. Hey, Gray. Amazing video, man. My question for the next week is something I could really get your advice on that is personal to me. I'm starting to enter my final years of college in Australia, and I wanted to start looking for a partner. I'm only 19, but I studied 2 degrees being law and accounting, and I'm slowly getting a job in the banking field, and that way I can have that financial support both income-wise and connection networking-wise. I want to be married before I'm 25 because my parents, although they love each other, don't have the most ideal relationship, and I want to make sure that I do it right with my wife. Do you have any advice on how I can go about finding that special someone, maintaining a good relationship, and although I am of the Islamic faith, if you can't tell by my name, I would really like some Christianity insight. Thanks, man. I appreciate your videos so much, especially Church for Gamers, which is really interesting. You're Muslim and you like Church for Gamers. Kind of shocking. But there is actually some really good stuff in the Bible about finding a mate. Now, I'm a Christian, so everything that I believe in may be different than you, but when I was ready to find my spouse, I prayed. And my dad was the one who told me to do this. He said, you pray and you be very specific about what you want. So I went upstairs, I opened up my window, and I leaned outside my window and I prayed for about 20-30 minutes, and I was very specific with God what I wanted. So much so that I can't even remember what I said. And 6 months later, I met my wife. And I knew without a doubt when I laid eyes on her that she was my wife. I knew. And she knew pretty much right away as well. It was like that click. So number one, if you want to find somebody, you got to pray. And you got to be very specific in what you want. But let me go a little bit deeper for you. You asked me to come at it from a Christian perspective. Genesis chapter 24, my friend. Genesis chapter 24, Abraham is sending his servant to go to a distant land and find his son Isaac a wife. He says in verse 2, to his chief servant in the household, he put one in charge of all that he had. He said, put your hand under my thigh, he said. In verse 3, I want you to swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and the God of earth, that you will not get a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites among whom I am living, but you will go to my country and my own relatives and get a wife for my son Isaac. Let me break that down for you just a little bit. What he's talking about is this. You want to find a wife of your same tribe, of your same faith. You go to the land of your relatives. That means that, and I don't want anybody to take offense to this because there's a lot of intermarriage these days, but it's you marry from within your own race and within your own faith. Now, why do we suggest that? Because it eliminates many, many problems that you're going to have, because when you have an intermarriage, there are cultural differences and they're going to show themselves throughout your entire marriage. Her family will not accept you fully. Your family will not accept her fully. I'm just saying it up front. And then marry within the faith that you have, because when you share that commonality of the faith, life is so much easier because you have a set of beliefs that you follow and you carry them out in your marriage. Now, mine's a Christian faith. So I married a Christian woman who believed the same thing that I did. And she knew that I was going to serve her as Christ served the church. And she was going to submit to me just as the church submits to Christ. Let's continue on in verse 6. It says, make sure that you do not take my son back there, meaning that the wife is going to come with you. She's going to submit to the will and she's going to come with the husband. That's why a husband and a wife will leave their families and they will cleave to one another. And he talks about how God will provide a spouse. It's 100% trust that God's going to provide the person that you need in your life. It says in specific that he promised on oath, saying, to your offspring I will give this land. He will send an angel before you so that you can get a wife for my son from there. If the woman is unwilling to come back with you, then you will be released from your oath, meaning that God will make it apparent. He says that he will provide for you a spouse and he'll provide one. All right, now follow along with me here. Okay, we're going to go to verse 10 and I'm going to read this to you. He says, then the servant took 10 of his master's camels and left. So he left the land of Abraham and he went forth, taking with him all kinds of good things from his master, which in other words would be a dowry. He set out for Aram Naharaim and made his way to the town of Nahor. In verse 11, he had the camels kneel down near the well outside the town. It was towards evening, the time the women go out to draw water. See, the servant knew where to go. He knew where to go to find a woman with a servant's heart. Let me continue. Then he prayed in verse 12. The servant sat down and he prayed. He said, O Lord, God of my master Abraham, give me success today and show kindness to my master Abraham. In verse 13, see, I am standing beside this spring, and the daughters of the townspeople are coming out to draw water, meaning that the women are coming out to do their duties. Okay? Verse 14, may it be that when I say to a girl, and he's being very specific. By the way, girl in this verse can be translated virgin. Please let down your jar that I may have a drink. And she says, drink, and I'll water your camels too. Let her be the one whom you have chosen for your servant Isaac. And by this I will know that you, God, have shown kindness to my master. He was very specific in the prayer. He wanted to find a girl who not only would serve him, but would go above and beyond and serve the animals as well. So at verse 15, before he had finished praying, Rebekah came out with her jar on her shoulders, and she was the daughter of Bethuel, son of Milcah, who was the wife of Abraham's brother Nahor. And the girl was very beautiful, a virgin. No man had ever lain with her. And she went down to the spring, filled her jar, and came up again. Verse 17, the servant hurried to meet her and said, please give me a little water from your jar. In verse 18, she said, drink, my lord. And she said, quickly lowered the jar of her hands and gave him a drink. And in verse 19, after she had given him a drink, she said, I'll draw water for your camels too until they have finished drinking. So she quickly, I love that word, quickly emptied her jar into the trough, ran back to the well to draw more water, and drew enough for all of his camels. And without saying a word, the man watched her closely and learned whether or not the Lord had made his journey successful. Before his eyes, the prayer was answered. Not only did he find a servant-hearted woman, but she was a virgin and she was hospitable. Notice how it said that he watched. The only way that you can know the character of a woman is to watch her in life. It's one thing to say something, it's another thing to carry it out. It's a great pairing of the verse in Matthew chapter 10 verse 45 where it says, "For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." In other words, the partner that you want to find in life, you have to make sure that they have a servant's heart. That ego does not control their very nature. The story goes on, and the servant comes up to her, and as soon as the camels had finished drinking, the man took out a gold nose ring weighing a beka, which means it weighed a lot, and 2 gold bracelets weighing 10 shekels. And then he asked, "Whose daughter are you? And please tell me, is there room in your father's house for us to spend the night?" He's seeking out to see if she's a hospitable woman, and she invites him over, and he gives her the jewelry, and she's ecstatic. So it continues on from there. In verse 32, it says, "So the man went to the house," meaning her house, her family's house, "and the camels were unloaded, and straw and fodder were brought for the camels, and water for him and his men to wash their feet." You're seeing the hospitability of her family now. Not only does she have a servant's heart and she's pure and she's hospitable, but you're seeing the family that she came from, which speaks volumes to a girl's character. And then food was set before him, and he said, "I will not eat until I have told you what I have to say." And he goes on to tell the story of why he was brought to this area in the first place by his master Abraham, and that he wants Rebekah to come back with him. And after hearing the entire story in verse 50, it says, "Laban and Bethuel answered, 'This is from the Lord. We can say nothing to you one way or the other. Here is Rebekah. Take her and go, and let her become the wife of your master's son, and the Lord has directed.' And when Abraham's servant heard what they had said, he bowed down to the ground before the Lord, and he prayed. He took out the dowry and he gave it to the people. And as soon as he was done, he gathered up everything and he took her back." So I know that is quite a wordy answer. You asked me to come at it from a Christian perspective. So let me boil it all down to you. Real simple and sweet, okay? Number 1, pray about it. Be very specific in what you want from a woman. Find a pure woman, a virgin if at all possible, or a repentant woman if she had violated that covenant before. Number 2, you're looking for a servant-hearted woman, because that'll bring success in your marriage. You want to find a woman from your same tribe who carries the same faith as you. And number 4, make sure that she's hospitable. It's so important, especially when you get older and you're married and you have kids, a hospitable woman. And make sure that she comes from a good family, because it speaks to her character. And she's willing to leave her family to be with you. And I'm going to end it there. All right, you guys, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the thumbs up button, leave a comment down below, ask me more questions, and I'll see you on the next one.